Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. So I, like many parents, have started looking at homeschooling as a viable teaching system. With all of those school shootings recently and, well, just general fear of our children getting hurt in school, I think a lot of parents are looking into this. So although these school shootings is a huge reason why a lot of parents are looking into this, I want to also give you other reasons why homeschooling might be a good choice. I have a few different reasons, and one of my main reasons is to have control over my children's learning. I don't know if it was just me, but in high school in particular, I took 3 or 4 years of algebra and geometry. Too long, if you ask me, because do you remember, I'm sure everyone asked this question, it wasn't just me. I was like, when am I going to use this in a real world situation? Never. I've never used it. Never once. I mean, I use like basic math all the time. Like, that's super important. But where was the teaching on taxes? Where was the teaching on, I don't know, tips, how to do tips? Like, there was no real teaching on that. At least there wasn't for me. I mean, I could have not been paying attention, but I feel like no one learned that where I was from. So I don't know if all schools are like that, but mine was. So I want my children to have more focus on reading, especially because I feel like they can learn a lot that maybe I can't teach them through reading, because you can learn a lot through books. I want them to learn writing and basic math skills. I think those are super important. But I also want to include things like history so they understand the world around them. I also want to be there for them growing up. My children are my life. I love them to death. And even though there are times, a lot of times actually, that they drive me crazy, I still want to be there for them on everything. I think that a lot of parents nowadays don't necessarily spend enough time with their kids. And I'm even guilty of that, even though I'm a stay-at-home mom. Like, I sometimes don't give them the undivided attention. Homeschooling allows me to be there for my daughter on these things that she learns. It allows her to be excited and me to be excited about what she's learning about. And her to be excited that I saw that she did something, because children always want their parents to be proud of them. And I feel like I've been a lot more proud and been able to be super excited when she learns stuff, because I am there for every step of the way. I also, like I said before, don't want them to have to deal with modern day schooling. Modern day school systems suck. Even when I graduated, it sucked. There was a lot of bullying. There was a lot of scary situations. I mean, there weren't necessarily that scary situations where I was from, but, you know, like, I could see how kids would be scared to go to school now, and I don't want my kids to experience that. I also think homeschooling is great because it allows me to best teach my children, you know, the way they learn the best. I think that my daughter seems to be a very visual learner. Everyone learns differently, and that's fine. But I don't think schools necessarily teach to different learning methods. A lot of times they teach one method or two methods, and they don't necessarily teach what's right for one child. And they can't. I mean, this is definitely not bashing teachers, because they have one of the hardest jobs. But I don't think that they can necessarily teach to every kid's best learning ability. Plus, they can't give that one-on-one, you know, teaching time. So my last reason for homeschooling is homeschooling also gives me the ability to create my own schedule. I don't have to worry about summer vacation. I don't have to do that if I don't want to. I could take the entire month of December off if I wanted to. You're supposed to teach a few hours a day. So for me, I kind of teach in increments that are best for myself. I teach mostly in the afternoons. So I usually do an activity in the morning that's considered what I would consider homeschooling, because it's teaching her. And then I will do most of my teaching in the afternoon. And then maybe I'll do another activity later on in the afternoon too, or night. And that breaks it up enough where it doesn't feel like it's mundane. It doesn't feel like it's boring. It doesn't feel like, well, I mean, you just don't get tired of it because you're having fun with it. But it allows, you know, I get to create my own schedule with it. I get to decide what months I want to do off. If I need a few months to kind of do my own thing, I can kind of do that. I mean, it gives you the ability to do that. If I, you know, if something happens within the family, it allows me to, I could stop for a while and it not be a big deal. Like, I get to create my own schedule with it. You don't have to do it where they take 3 months off in the winter time or the summertime, or like, you know, it gets weird. Their schedules are always weird, and so you don't have to worry about that. But for me also, one big perk to this is, even though I don't do it a lot now, I will be doing it in the future, is traveling. This, with homeschooling, it allows me to travel, well, whenever I want, and I can still use it as homeschooling, you know, teachings, because I could go to a museum and let them walk around. Well, that's teaching them. You know, I get to teach them outside of the house and teach them in other ways that maybe other kids don't. You know, field trips, I could do a field trip every day if I wanted to with the kids. I mean, I won't. Most of my stuff will be at home, but you know what I'm saying? It's like one day a week, that could be one of my classes, is I could take them to a nearby museum. Something like that. That could be considered teaching. So it also allows me to, even though I don't do it often now, which I wish I did, but traveling with 2 kids, like a baby especially, is nearly impossible. But traveling is one of those things that I love to do, and I'm excited to do with my kids as well. But the problem is if they're in school, they have a very set schedule. They have to go to class from this time to this time. They have to, you know, you understand, they only have certain times, and they have to go to school for so long. When they're at home, if they're homeschooled, they don't have to go to school nearly as long, and you get to do activities and stuff that can be considered homeschooling as well. You don't have to do it every single day, so it's not a big deal. This allows me to choose the months that I want to, you know, or days or whatever that I want to travel. So I can travel to places during cheaper months, because we know that during the summer months, those are the most expensive months. So let's say, for instance, I want to go to Disney. We know that those summer months are going to be the most busy. So instead, maybe I could go before the rush or after the rush, so that it's not so crazy when we go, because I get to choose when we want to take vacations. I'm not limited to anything except for my husband's work schedule. So I'm going to tell you some things that you should know before you start homeschooling as well. I think there's some pros and cons to homeschooling. Okay, so one of the biggest cons to homeschooling is that you have to have patience. I would like to think that I have quite a bit of patience, but sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's kind of hard, because you're trying to teach them, you want them to understand it, and you don't know how else they're going to understand it. And then you're questioning yourself, because you're like, can I do this? And so, like, for me, I get frustrated with myself, because I'm like, how can I get her to understand this? Like, how do I do it? I don't know how else to explain it, because I don't know another way to teach it, which it was my own fault, not hers, because there's no way that she can understand it if I don't know how to teach it. So patience is so important, and I feel like as long as you're pretty good at projecting patience with your child, it's okay. But you also need to be understanding with yourself, because it is so difficult, and it is so hard. And I know I'm pretty hard on myself about it. I'm like, I don't know if she's gonna understand it. I don't know how else to put it. And if that's how you feel, there are other ways to teach your kids. So just walk away and make it less of a big deal. So making plans is another huge con for it, because it is kind of hard to come up with a whole week's worth of stuff and actually stick to it, because you don't know what's going to work and what's not. And you're like, I don't know. But I feel like as long as you are able to kind of roll with the punches, you know, it'll be okay. I feel like you can change them on the spot. Maybe your kid doesn't enjoy it. That's fine. Find something else. Pinterest is amazing. I'm just saying, they have hundreds of things. A con to this is it can be sort of pricey, depending on what you're doing. I feel like, I'm going to put this in the pro list too, because it can kind of go both ways. You can do it for cheap. You can do homeschooling for cheap. You have resources to do it for cheap. But does it make it easier to buy stuff? Yes. Have I bought stuff? Yes. I've bought a lot of stuff. Do I regret buying some of it? Also, yes. because I don't think all of it is necessary. And the last con, it can also be a pro, is that you have to learn too. I love to learn. I love to read. I like to do all that type of stuff. So for me, that's not a huge deal, but it is, again, it can be kind of annoying because you have to constantly be learning so that you can teach them. Of course, you can teach them what you already know, but I know for my kids, I want to be able to teach them outside of what I know. I would like them to learn other languages. I would like them to learn, other things that I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know how to speak any languages, but I'm going to sure as heck try to learn how to speak other languages so that they can benefit from it too. Now, some pros. Now, I mentioned how it being expensive is possible, but it can also be very cheap. But it makes it slightly more difficult if you're doing it the cheap method because it takes a lot more work on your end. So the part that makes this expensive is if you want to do a lot of field trips. I want my kids to learn outside of the house because you can teach them wherever you want. But the cheap aspect of it is you can just find things on the internet and print it out. You can create your own lesson plans, and you don't have to do a ton of field trips, or if you do, just go to the free one. Another pro is that it lets you have fun too. Now, it could also not be so fun because, again, you had to put a lot of work into it, but I feel like if you find that activity that you have a lot of fun with, your kids will have fun with a lot as well, and it gets you time to giggle, and it's going to be memories. It's super difficult to be a stay-at-home parent, let alone a homeschooling parent, because now you're not ever going to get breaks. But, I feel like it's super rewarding and I'm super happy that I've been doing it. Anyways, so if you guys are excited for these lesson plans and more homeschooling activities, recipes, I don't even know what, then please like this video and please subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Thank you for watching. Bye.